How does a soccer mom build a note portfolio as a sideline adventure? Stay tuned. Welcome to this week's edition of NoteSchool TV, where every Wednesday at 11:05 Central Time, we bring you the most amazing content and the most amazing guests. And well, this week again is no different. We have an amazing guest today, and we will bring her on in just a minute. But before we do, we've got a couple of favors of you here to ask of you. Number one, make sure and hit that like button. Yep, go ahead and hit it and like this episode. Well, I know you're going to love it, right? Number two, subscribe to NoteSchool TV if you have not already done so. And guys, we're coming up on our third anniversary here in September. And then make sure and hit that bell notification so that you will be notified when we go live. When? Every Wednesday at 11:05 Central Time. Also, keep those comments and questions coming. Yep, just type those in. Eddie and I love to hear from you guys, what you're thinking, what your reaction is to the show, to our guests, and so on. So please make sure and just give us a little hint of that and let us know what's going on out there in your world. And if you would like more information about what we do at NoteSchool, simply go to noteschool.com/TV. Again, noteschool.com/TV. And we would love to have a conversation with you and also get you into one of our 2-hour master classes. More about that at the end of the show. So with that, we are going to bring on, founder of NoteSchool, Chief Visionary Officer, all-around great guy, my friend, Mr. Eddie Speed.
Hello, Joe.
Well, good morning, sir. How are you?
It is awesome.
Is it warm there in Dallas-Fort Worth?
It is. We're part of the story. I guess it's on the news all the time.
Yep.
I think it's just part of, we live in the South. It's hot here, and it just is what it is. We're in the 2000s instead of the 1920s.
Yes.
So it could be worse because we had air conditioning. I don't want to get off into all the, political and all the different things of whatever, but a friend of mine that is actually a NoteSchool member, very smart guy from Phoenix, did a chart that he put on Facebook not long ago. And in the decade of the 30s, apparently was the hottest decade ever. Mm-hmm. I heard on the news this past week that the hottest 8 years have been the 8 years we're in right now. So I don't know if we're going to bump that or not. But anyway, the 1930s were pretty crazy hot. If you looked at that chart, it was like off the chain. So there you go.
That was the Dust Bowl, correct? I think so.
Yeah, the Oklahoma Dust Bowl. So you guys, we have a really good show today. And Joe, you've picked a great news topic and something pretty timely to some things that we kind of have been pointing to.
Yeah. All right. So let's bring the slides up. So this is a story that has been unfolding really over the last few days. And so Fitch is it is the largest ratings agency that rates U.S. bonds, U.S. debt, the GSEs, government-sponsored enterprises. And they came out, and Eddie, they downgraded U.S. debt on debt ceiling drama and governance worries. And this is, it was all over the place. This is just actually the story that we picked was from CNN Business.
Yeah.
So
yeah, it's a lot to be said about it. And, I think, we've been talking about, this is primarily the residential. This could include multifamily, of course. But this is Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac, and they've downgraded them. And people say, well, why would they do that? Like, and the reason is because I think that what the rating agency sees is what we've been alluding to.
Yeah.
Which is there's a level of risk in the market on these loan portfolios.
Yep.
And of course, they're primarily residential mortgages. They can be multifamily mortgages under that category. And, it's more to say about what we've been talking about, the loan origination business. Joe, this isn't the rating of the actual lenders. This is the rating of the government-sponsored enterprise.
That's right. It has nothing to do with the private, with the regular banks. It has all to do with America's credit rating, right, throughout the world. And let's face it, government bonds are still the safest thing in the world to invest in, but there is some concerns at this point. Yeah. So, Eddie, not only was it the Fitch rating company, then Moody's kind of did a pile on here. And so U.S. bank shares drop as Moody's cuts ratings and warns on risks, right? So higher funding, potential regulatory capital weakness, and rising risk tied to commercial real estate are among strains prompting the review of this. So yeah, Moody's rates the banks, Eddie.
Joe, the best I can say is they've been watching NoteSchool TV.
Yeah, I do believe that strongly, Eddie. I have a strong thumbs up on that. And here was one of the, and this was on Yahoo Finance, and then Bloomberg originally did the story. But Moody's Investor Services lowered its ratings on banks: U.S. Bank Corp, Bank of New York Mellon, State Street, and Truist, which really is popping up all over the place. But then also that was a small downgrade, but then a negative outlook for Capital One Financial Group, PNC Bank as well, Citizens Financial. So yeah, there is some challenges, and these are some of the medium-sized banks, not the mega banks, but these medium-sized banks that we've been talking about over the last few weeks.
Let me remind you guys of this. I make a joke about the rating agencies watching us. Joe and I are not making the news. We're trying to do a fair job of reporting the news that relates to our real estate and the real estate finance industry. Mm-hmm. Sometimes the economy. Obviously, you saw us with David Phelps last week, because that clearly is connected. And we're just trying to give what we think is the straight skinny of it. We're not trying to angle it one way or another. So the fact that we've been discussing this, really for months, and now all of a sudden you see the rating agencies, we it's kind of, in my mind, Joe, it's a little bit of the report card of what we've been reporting.
It is. It is. And we're not bragging or anything like that. We just, again, we try to report the news as fairly as we possibly can. And we don't make this stuff up, for sure.
An old baseball player named Dizzy Dean said, "It ain't bragging if it's a fact."
It ain't bragging if it's a fact. That's right. And then John Wayne kind of capitalized on that as well later in his career, didn't he? No brag, just fact.
All right.
For sure. Well, let's bring on our guest.
We have a terrific guest today, Joe. I'm really excited. She is she's become part of our family. She's been with NoteSchool now a few years, and we'll talk about that. But you called her a soccer mom, and she is a soccer mom, but she's also got a day job and got a family, and really trying to balance work life. And she found something, I think, that really has fit that well. From Ogden, Utah, you guys welcome Chelsea Geer.
Hello.
How are you?
I'm good. How are you guys?
We are so glad to have you.
Thank you.
We're very happy now that
you're
you're
got the heat down here in Texas. I'm sure you don't have any in Utah, right?
No, not at all. Nope.
Yeah.
Speaking of soccer, I got a tournament in like 2 hours, and it's like 97 degrees. So
my goodness. Yeah, I've been to Utah in the summertime, so I'm fully aware that people think the sun can't get hot up there, and they're a little bit confused, right?
Yeah. Not the humidity, but it's that dry heat, the killer.
Oh yeah. Well, they
Well,
say it's not as hot as with the humidity, but it's still hot, Chelsea.
It's still hot. Yep.
All right. Hey guys, I'm going to drop off here. You guys have a blast. I know you will. And I'll see you on the end of the show.
Thank you, Joe.
Bye.
So Chelsea, we're really glad to have you. I think you really represent a lot of the audience that NoteSchool is able to help. And I think as you kind of unveil what this journey has been for you, you heard we said it in the opening, right? It's been a journey building a note portfolio.
Yep, it has.
So first of all, congratulations. We are so glad to have you and consider you in our, we call it our NoteSchool family, and that's not meant to sound hokey. I just think you agree it's a truth, right?
Yeah. Oh yeah.
So what were you doing? What was before NoteSchool? What did that look like?
So pre-NoteSchool, starting back, well, my dad had a family-run business. And so this was pre me having any kind of passive income, zero expense or zero experience in real estate or investing or any of that. I worked in this family business, and my dad started about 40 years ago. Back in about 2021, we were in the process of putting it up for sale. And at the time, I knew I wanted to get out of that 9-to-5 grind, but I didn't know how. I didn't know what that looked like at the time. So this is where I really was almost forced, if I'm not going to work here anymore, I gotta find something else. And I really wanted to better myself at the time. And I started, reading books, listening to podcasts and webinars and YouTube on just investing in business in general. And I just really wanted to, at the time, my goal was to have 5 streams of income. And this was huge for me because I only had the one and my husband had one. So going from my 1 to 5 was a big goal. It felt unattainable at the time, but I was excited. I was nervous. And I also know that I need to find something that I really like, because once I find something, I'm all in. I get myself very involved in it. So I was nervous at the time. I didn't know what that looked like, but I knew something was out there.
That's great.
Yeah.
Well, the other thing is, I think and we talked about that, you were looking for something that fit your personality.
Yeah.
So, what was, I guess I would say everybody has a checklist, right? When you make a progression, so you said it, like you kind of started like watching these YouTube channels, right? Us on NoteSchool TV. That was your initial interest. There's people out there that are in the same situation.
Yep.
And so as you started down your checklist of like pursuing NoteSchool, what was it specifically? What was it you were trying to, I want to accomplish the blank. What is the blank?
I am a very introverted person. I wanted something behind the scenes. I knew the stock market wasn't for me. I knew real estate wasn't really for me just because I was unfamiliar with it. Again, I had zero experience, and I just kind of wanted something behind the scenes where I can work at it up front. I can get it set up, and then it's just steady income from there, and it's very passive. And I also wanted to be able to do something that I could do on the side or from anywhere when I have time. And so that's where I came across this.
Yeah.
This is very exciting. Yeah.
I want to make a point of this, guys. Chelsea did not start out with a strong real estate background. Yes, NoteSchool has members that have done 2,000 real estate deals, right? But NoteSchool has members that start out that haven't done a deal, right? And you kind of heard war stories about rental properties and this and that. Obviously, you're in your family, we're in, businesses, and you've got other business owners you've conversed with, and yet those war stories didn't sound very fun to you, right?
No.
So let's talk a little bit more about, we refer to the NoteSchool family. It's an ecosystem. It's an environment. We very intentionally built it, with people and processes, us as an executive team with a significant amount of industry experience, and let's just call it an industry seat at the table. And that's turned out pretty good for you, right?
Yeah.
So when like in that process in finding this, what obstacles did you face?
My biggest obstacle, like I mentioned, was just not knowing what I wanted to do that fit all those boxes that we were talking about. And I knew I wanted it to be low maintenance. I knew I wanted it passive, but again, I had no experience. I was a busy mom, like we said, a soccer mom. I got kids in comp soccer and baseball, and I was working. I didn't have a lot of time. That was probably my biggest obstacle. And I also wanted something that I could do from anywhere. I throw my kids out of practice. I can sit in the car and answer a few emails or whatever I needed to do. And so I knew that I wanted to, that it fits those boxes, but I didn't know where to focus my time and energy. And like you said, unlike a lot of people that join NoteSchool, I had zero real estate experience, zero passive income. And that was actually quite terrifying for me, is to jump in so strong into this. I mean, kind of knowing what I was getting into, but it was very exciting once I did. And then I went headstrong, and this is what I did for almost 2 years straight.
That's pretty incredible. So you had this checklist, right?
Mm-hmm.
You, like most people in the world, you wanted some time back. That was a big thing, right? You wanted mailbox money, passive income, right? And you hadn't been grinding, flipping houses or managing rentals. And so you're like, is this possible? Mm-hmm. You talked about listening to Robert Kiyosaki, I guess in a book or something, where he said, like, be the bank.
Yeah.
And that's in theory sounds good, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then all of a sudden you kind of run into us, and it's like, that's what we said. You can be the bank, you can get your time back, you can have passive income. And
from anywhere.
And so is this a pipe dream, Chelsea? I mean,
it sounds super cliche, but it really is. I mean, it fit all those boxes that I wanted to do. And again, like I said, it's a bit of upfront work when you're dealing with the due diligence, or if something happens to go into bankruptcy or whatever. But still, if you can do the heavy lifting up front, it really is passive income that you can do from anywhere. This is what I wanted for so long, and I found it.
All right. Everybody that joins some kind of a group, you're looking for a little more of this and a little less of that. Mm-hmm. And let's talk about that for a minute. What were you not looking for, and what were you looking for?
Again, I said I was introverted, so I didn't want to deal with tenants. I didn't want to have to, be upfront and in public and stuff like that. I just wanted to stay behind the scenes, and I wanted something that I could do on my time. So, when I'd go work out, instead of listening to music, I'd put on a podcast or get in the car and I drive my son to soccer practice. And he's like, is that Australian guy that you're always listening to? And I'm like, no, he's not Australian. He's got a heavy Texas accent. He's like, I love that accent. It's so cool. but that whole process also made me realize that my boys are watching what I'm doing. They're understanding that I'm also putting forth effort and I'm learning, and then they're going to be able to, get by with that too. It's something that they can do long term. And I think it's really cool that my kids are getting interested in as well. And actually, my son had an English project last year in school. He was in 8th grade at the time. And the thing was, what if you inherited $2 million? What would you do with the money? And, there's this checkbox of how much would you spend on a house? How much do you spend on a car, on clothes and whatnot? And there was a little section for other. And he went and put, I want to invest in mortgage notes. And I would put my money here. I'd put $500,000 here if I get a 12% in return. So this teacher emails me back and she's like, what the heck is a note? Like, how can you make money on a note? So I actually had to explain to her. I was like, it's a legit thing. And now he's learning, like, I'm aiming for 12% return, 12 to 15%, and I could be happy. Then I never have to work a day in my life. I was like, oh, honey, you got a lot to learn. But this is very cool that now he's teaching his teacher about mortgage notes that she never knew existed.
My kids, Chelsea, and you've seen them and met them too. But my kids, same thing. They started down the road, being exposed to it. Our family, we become pretty good friends with a lot of NoteSchool members, and so when they were a senior in high school, my oldest one, when he was a senior in high school, had to do a project, and it was an economics class, and they had to explain some economics scenario. And so they described the partial in a self-directed retirement account and taking $1,000 and turning it into 100,000. In fact, it was only supposed to last 15 minutes, and he went first that day, and they never got to the second kid. And 90% of the questions were the teacher. My son was in athletics also and did a lot, and he was a coach, and so he knew my son very well. And then this was wood, right? Okay. And then my youngest son, Hudson, had the same class, same thing, and he did the same presentation. The teacher didn't even plan to have a second kid that day. And anyway, so it's kind of funny, like they can't quite relate to the fact that we are subliminally, we're teaching our kids the mindset of investing. And guess what? They like it, right?
Yeah. Love it.
Pretty funny. That's awesome. How long have you been in Note School?
I had to think back, but I believe I joined the end of 2020 because it was just kind of during COVID and everything was virtual. Virtual is my kind of gig, so I loved it.
All right. You have an impressive, I know you're far from anybody that would ever boast. So you're not boasting, you're just stating the facts. You've done pretty incredible. You've built a portfolio of notes. Tell us about that.
So obviously I started with 0 notes, and in the last 2.5 years, I have a portfolio between my dad and I, which I do manage his. So he's funded a lot of them, but I manage all of them, and we've got 28 notes so far. So it's a lot.
You went from 0 passive income, and essentially your dad had no passive income, right?
Yep.
And so now you've done exactly what's in my heart. And that is, you built a legacy business out of it. You've allowed your dad to take his 40 years of work in his business and now have a legacy that he can earn income without having to go, and now his time's his own.
Yep, exactly.
What would you say, Chelsea, what would you say to somebody out there that's just kind of sitting on the sidelines, kind of thinking about this, and they're measuring off, like, can I do this? Like, what would you say to them?
I would say that if I can do it, anybody can do it. If I'm 100% lacking experience, I'm lacking real estate history, I'm lacking time, that whole thing. I mean, if I can do it, anybody can do it. And again, it takes some time up front to sit there and teach yourself and educate and be dedicated to the webinars and stuff. But it's exciting to learn that new stuff. And if you can really jump into it, it is so worth it. It's so worth it to have that freedom. And I knew the cliche thing of mailbox money up front, but now I will tell my kids, I'm like, oh, I think our check's here. And they'll fight over the key and literally run out to the mailbox. I'm like, I got it. I got your mailbox money. So it's very cool for me to see. It's cool for them to see. And I would just say, like again, if I can do it, this can be done by anybody.
Well, I really believe that. And listen, that doesn't take anything away. You're smart. And I'm saying that. You're not saying that. You've certainly been diligent. You got to take advantage of a new program that we unveiled about a year ago, which has been the best thing NoteSchool's ever done, which we call Done for You.
Yes.
So we take our members and we help them with the things that they don't want to do.
Yep.
Let's talk a little bit about that. Right.
So that's where my dad did have a lot of money and I still didn't have a whole lot of time. So I knew that you had this Done for You project, and I actually just reached out to Bob and I said, hey, I've got X amount of money to invest. What do you got for me? And he sends me back this pool of 14 notes up front, and I go through it, and the due diligence is a lot quicker just because I can trust now what you guys are giving to me is really what it is. I don't have to put a lot of time into it. And then I find out on the back end that you guys are also going and getting things recorded with the county, which is fantastic because that was my least favorite part. So all of this stuff basically kind of just being handed to me with very little work was awesome. So we've actually done it twice now with you guys. We did the pool of 14, and then I can't remember what the next pool was, but I also got my sister involved with the second pool. So it's kind of becoming a family thing.
The legacy thing is real, and it's so exciting. You know, that's what we figured out. First of all, we have a seat at the table. You know, we bid on portfolios every week. Bob's bought literally $3 billion in discounted mortgages. You know, we have a team, myself and Bob and Charles and Susan and all these guys. We have decades of experience and decades of relationships, and you don't have that. And the second thing is, let's be honest about it. We got a couple of 100,000 hours of due diligence more than you do in experience, right? And so we started realizing, now what the key to it was that you were a student and you understood the due diligence that we gave you. And so we only do this with people that progress down the road with us, because people that don't have the background you have, they don't well, let's just be honest about it. They don't understand the punchline answer. Yeah. Right. If you don't have the background, the punchline of the joke doesn't always make sense. Right.
Yep.
So that's a great thing. Chelsea, we're so honored to have you. Joe?
Yeah, guys, sitting here watching and listening, this amazing, Chelsea. You know, she told us, she said, I'm so nervous, and she keeps saying she's an introvert. I don't get that or see that, but great job. And I'm going to just kind of throw something back here at you. Chelsea, you had said, and I know people kind of go, oh my gosh, you said you literally, and I don't think Eddie had shared this with you guys, but you literally work a couple of hours a month. Is that true on your note business now?
It is, yeah. I mean, again, up front, I was doing quite a bit of time doing the due diligence, but then the done for you. Yeah. And now I've got to record payments. I got to deposit a couple checks, which is super hard, right? And exciting.
Well, now you can just take a picture of them and,
I know. My kids fight over that part too. So,
that's amazing. And, it's just something that we say, and Eddie said for years, and this is something you do the work once, right? You put in some time once, and then you get paid forever. And I don't know if that doesn't light your fire, Eddie. Your wood's wet for sure. Eddieism.
That's a truth.
Basically, you bought a note a month, 28 notes. Yeah. So
the average still has like 10 to 15 years, and I know some of those refi or whatever, but that's long-term passive income.
But
Chelsea,
as you recapitalize, you'll reinvest.
Yep, exactly.
Yeah.
We really appreciate it. I know that you're not a person seeking the starlight, and thank you for doing it. You did this to help a note school person that we don't know yet.
Good.
That's what you really did.
Yeah. Good.
And because it's we tell a story like yours pretty often, but we never get tired of telling it. And the most important part is, I congratulate you on going to that soccer tournament here in a minute. Take your umbrella or whatever it is to stay cool in a wet rag. But let me just tell you something. You can do it.
Yes.
You have the time to go spend the time with something other than just being in the grind.
Exactly. Yep. It's awesome.
Thank you. Thank you, Chelsea. We really appreciate your being with us.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it too.
Thank you, Chelsea. And I'll wrap us up here real quick, guys. Again, another great guest as promised. Chelsea is amazing in what she's been able to do with her family and her father, and now her sister and the boys. And you know what? It's just one of those things that we, as Eddie said, that we see all the time. We would love to have you involved with Note School. And we would, we're going to throw the invitation out there from Eddie and myself to attend one of our 2-hour master classes. And Eddie's going to invite you as his guest. It's on him. And this is 2 hours. It's done by Eddie and Mr. Max Keller, who is our Chief Market Officer. Just to expand on what we do at Note School and what that's all about. So if you'd like to attend or have any questions, like to have a conversation, noteschool.com/TV. Again, noteschool.com/TV. And in the subject line, just put in there masterclass or questions about masterclass, and we'd love to have a conversation. Guys, stay cool. Have a great rest of your week, and we will see you next Wednesday at 11:05 Central Time. Bye now.